I know, a bassist on YouTube playing Flea bass lines. How original, right? But I was inspired to do this video after reading some monster forum threads discussing whether Flea is overrated or not. Well, he's okay. He doesn't play very cleanly.
Flea is overrated for sure. I mean, he has done a good deal for music, but he's still spreading the existence more anti-theory musicians.
Flea's definitely overrated. It's only because he's in a successful band he's so famous.
Flea is definitely not as good as it gets. He's good, but Marcus Miller is the master of slap.
You don't want to think of all the bad things I have to say about Flea. There is not enough time on Earth, nor enough words.
Admittedly, I have a soft spot for Flea. I started playing bass my freshman year of high school, and a friend turned me on to the Mother's Milk album. I hadn't really listened to the Chili Peppers before, but that album became one of the ones that I was listening to constantly all the way through high school. Whether you're just a fan of music or you're looking to improve your bass game, here are 7 reasons why I think Flea is awesome, including tips you can use to emulate his signature style and sound as kick-ass as he does. Reason number 1 Flea is awesome is his signature slapping. What makes Flea's slapping cool to me is that he's always laying down a clear pulse for the listener to follow. And a lot of his bass lines might sound complex or flashy, but if you break them down, they're actually pretty simple. Here's the slap line from Aeroplane off One Hot Minute. It sounds pretty cool, right? But if we break it down and remove the pops and just keep the slaps, it sounds like this. It's just eighth notes all the way through the bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, which is laying down a super solid pulse for the listener to follow. And then we just add the pops in between those slaps and we get. So an easy way to make your own Flea-style slap lines is just to start by slapping eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, I'll just use the open E string to demonstrate. And then in between those slaps, you can add pops on the octave of whatever note you're playing. And the octave is just the next instance up of that same note. And you can find that up 2 strings and up 2 frets. So if I'm on the open E string, that means I go to the 2nd fret of the D string. If I was on the 3rd fret of the E string, I go to the 5th fret of the D string. So I can just slap 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then add pops on the octave. And then if I'm playing with a guitar player, I can just follow the root notes of whatever chords they're playing and move around with them with my octaves. Like, let's say they were playing a chord progression like this: E, G, C, D. I just add the pops in. Flea in a can. Ah! Reason number 2 Flea is awesome is because he's authentic to his roots. Flea started out in punk rock with bands like Fear before starting RHCP, and you can hear that punk influence at the core of the more funk-oriented Chili Peppers.
What was the difference between playing in Fear and with a band like
Well,
the
playing with Fear had all the energy that the Chili Peppers had, but it was punk rock. It's got all the same energy, but it's just a whole different feel.
Without that punk attack and drive, the Chili Peppers would be a totally different band. Here's Flea's solo on Naked in the Rain with like a normal, respectable plucking intensity. But if I actually dig into it super hard the way Flea does, then you get this. That's the crazy energy that makes us love or hate the Chili Peppers. Yes, there are plenty of tighter, more technical bassists than Flea. But Flea's not trying to be Marcus Miller or Jocko. He plays in a band that functions on high energy and push, not off of cleanliness of execution and virtuosity. If Flea had come from a more jazzy background, Then he might have played something like this on Stone Cold Bush instead. She's Stone Cold Bush. And the Chili Peppers might never have been. Okay, I'm just kidding, but if you want to play Chili Peppers, think punk rock, super hot and fiery, and hit your bass with everything you've got. That wild ferociousness is part of what sets Flea apart, and I think there's a lesson in there for the rest of us as musicians to be true to ourselves, our own backgrounds, and how we want to play, and what music we want to make. Personally, for the music I want to make and the way I play, the way Flea slaps doesn't actually work for me. I learned that way initially. But as you can hear, I'm not very good at it anymore because I switched to pointing my thumb up so I could get better accuracy and a cleaner tone, and that's how I teach you how to slap in my Beginner to Badass course. It also allows me to do double thumbing, which is something I really like to do sometimes, like Larry Graham. Or Victor Wooten style stuff, like... But Flea isn't about playing super clean or playing the most notes. He's just about hitting f***ing hard and bringing that punk fire. The third reason Flea is awesome is his versatility. Even though he has a signature sound, he's not a one-trick pony. He's also recorded with Tom Waits, Johnny Cash, Joshua Redman, and many more. Here are a few of my favorite non-Chili Peppers Flea bass lines.
A girl starts walking, guy starts gawking, sits down next to you and starts talking. Says she wanna dance cause she likes the groove, so come on fatso and just bust the move.
That you gave that we made wasn't able to make it enough for you to be open wide. No, and every time you speak her name, does she know?
To me, these bass lines show that Flea knows how to listen and respond to the music at hand while still contributing some of his Flea flavor. Reason number 4 Flea is awesome is his melodic playing with the Chili Peppers. It's part of what distinguishes the sound of the band from more straightforward rock bands where the bass just plays a support role. And Flea was able to create interesting melodic bass lines with very limited theory knowledge, although he did have some theory knowledge contrary to popular belief, as you can see in this instructional video clip from 1999.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Even though Flea was writing and improvising primarily from a place of emotion and intuition, most of his bass lines still fit into the scales that you would use if you did know music theory. For example, here's what Flea plays at the beginning of the chorus of Can't Stop. So check this out, and if you don't read sheet music, don't worry, I'll walk you through everything. Those letters above the staff show where the guitar chords change, and there are 4 chords in this chorus section: G major, D major, B minor, and C major 7, and all the notes of all those chords fit into the G major scale. So Flea's bass line supports the guitar chords by playing a root note every time there's a chord change. So we have G on the G chord, D on the D chord, B on the B minor, and C on the C major 7. And he creates interesting melody by filling in around those root notes with other notes from the scale. So we go G, B, C, D, those are all notes from the scale. B, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. So all notes from the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D. You might find it surprising that 100% of this bass line fits within the rules of music theory, coming from a guy who supposedly doesn't know any. So if you're like me and you don't have magical Flea ears, music theory can be a really helpful way to get a stronger start with knowing what's going to sound good on a given song or chord progression.
Music is made up out of these building blocks, and studying how these blocks go together and what the blocks consist of is, and the math of how it works is, it's all the same stuff. It's just, different aesthetics that we're talking about.
The 5th reason I think Flea is awesome is he's a solid rhythm section player, even when he's playing slap lines. A lot of bass players just use slap to kind of show off, but Flea's slap lines consistently have interplay with the drums to create the funky foundation for the Chili Peppers. The slap and pop of the bass is a lot like the kick and snare of the drum kit, and you can tell Flea is thinking about it that way with some of his lines, like the intro to Taste the Pain. It sounds a little bit like a kick snare pattern, right? Here's a drum beat playing the exact kick snare pattern of the slap pop pattern I just played. And here's the bass line with that. Okay, so that drum part's way too busy, but what if the drummer just like removed some of those hits so that there's a little bit more space for the bass line to breathe? It might sound more like this. Having the bass and the drums partially synced up is how this is most often applied in actual Chili Peppers grooves. For example, the groove from Skinny Sweaty Man from the Uplift Mofo Party Plan, the bass line sounds like this. And here's the drum part. And here they are together. So the bass and drums sync up sometimes, but not always, and that's what helps keep Chili Peppers grooves interesting and not too monotonous, where it's just the same rhythm from everybody all the time. So one cheat code for getting your bass lines to be more connected to the drum part is to think of your thumb as the kick drum and your popping finger as the snare drum, and just get some practice imitating drum beats. So here's a simple drum beat I could do that with. Boom, boom, crack, kick, kick, snare, or slap, slap, pop, slap, slap, pop. Just on an octave, on an E, slap, slap, pop, slap, slap, pop. I can move that octave around. I could do that with a more complex kick snare pattern too. And then move the notes around. If you need help learning to listen to the drums the way Flea does, you can check out the beginner basics in my How to Play Bass with a Drummer video. The sixth reason I love Flea is that he brings his funk influences to a more pop and rock audience.
You know, people like Bootsy Collins and Larry Graham and the Meters and Sly and the Family Stone.
And you can hear those influences in his playing. Here are some bass lines that I think may have inspired Chili Peppers tunes. So if you want to come up with cool, funky ideas like Flea, just listen to the stuff he listened to. Graham Central Station, Sly and the Family Stone, Parliament, Bootsy, The Meters, Brothers Johnson. And the lesson here for budding musicians is don't be afraid to draw from your influences. People do it all the time. You can't not draw from your influences. The trick is just to not 100% copy them. So put your own spin on it the way Flea has taken his funk influence and put it into a package with his punk rock and hip hop influence. And that's what we call the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The seventh and final reason I think Flea is awesome is that even as he and the Chili Peppers have evolved their style over the years, he's still retained that authentic Flea sound. Because let's face it, a lot of artists sell out at some point. They blandify their sound down so they can be more accessible and get more sales. But while Flea has matured as an artist over time, I don't think he's ever sold out. Since Blood Sugar Sex Magik came out in 1991, he's moved away from the constant balls-to-the-wall slap lines and in a more melodic, nuanced direction, like with... But you can still hear that punky, funky spirit going crazy if you look in the right places, all the way from 1984's Red Hot Chili Peppers album to 2016's The Getaway. Ow, my thumb hurts. Those are 7 reasons I think Flea is awesome. What do you think? Is he awesome or overrated? Let me know. I'm gonna go ice my slap blister. I'll talk to you next time.